Ma'am.
Ma'am, could you please give us the access for recording?
Yes.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It has started. Aim for the sky, but move slowly, enjoying every step along the way. It is all those little steps that make the journey complete. Good afternoon to one and all present here. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome all of you to the valedictory ceremony of one-day international seminar on contemporary issues and challenges in international and domestic law. I, Anushka Chaudhary, along with Abhipsa Baral, are honored to have you with us. The seminar aims to examine and analyze the domestic and international laws in today's times. A contemporary issue is referred to an unresolved issue that is currently affecting the lives of people or the situation of a place. The main objective of the seminar is to deliberate and discuss on what is required, to build strategies and to address the constraints in inclusive practices towards betterment of the society. Elevating people's awareness of global contemporary issues is increasingly important as the countries of the world have become more interdependent. This society needs an understanding of the world's economy, politics, social structures, laws, and environment in order to make the best decision about how to live their own lives. At the same time, dealing with domestic issues with a critical eye is vital in enhancing democracy and getting first-hand knowledge and experience about the persisting condition in one's own nation. The international seminar will be attended by various international delegates and speakers, as also representatives from the national diaspora, representing the stakeholders in the digital ecosystem and Alive Web. Law Mantra is a non-profitable organization running for the purpose of enhancing legal academics and legal awareness in the society and in the practice of the same. Law Mantra is a registered society under the Indian Trust Act 1882, whose members are leaders and members from the legal fraternity, other professions, with a nexus to conflict resolution, academics, and experts from various fields who are committed to resolve conflicts and disputes using innovative mechanisms and methods such as mediation, conciliation, negotiation, and arbitration. Law Mantra is a body of jurists, advocates, academicians, and students. In accordance with their prominent objective, Law Mantra has taken the initiative to organize this one-day international seminar in collaboration with a well-established institution in the nation, Symbiosis Law School, Hyderabad. Symbiosis Law School, Hyderabad was established in 2014, inheriting splendid novelty, dynamism, and excellence in the education of Symbiosis International University, Pune. Symbiosis Law School, Hyderabad is founded on pillars of expertise, justice, and service, and is committed to impart quality education, confirming acclaimed international standards. The institution offers 5-year integrated undergraduate programs. It shares expertise in imparting quality legal education through competent and well-qualified teaching staff, techno-driven research culture, internationalization, centers for excellence, training and skill enhancement programs, and moot courts. It is committed to contributing to the justice mission of the state by initiating pro bono activities to help poor and marginalized people through community lawyering, legal aid camps, and permanent legal aid clinics. Further, it endeavors to create value-conscious skilled lawyers with par excellence, serving dynamic needs of the community through bar and bench. Now, I would like to call upon Abhipsa to take over.
Thank you, Anushka.
is our honor today to have such reputed dignitaries with us. It is a complete privilege for our institution to have Professor Dr. Nishta Jaswal, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Himachal Pradesh Law University, Shimla, Ms. Iram Majid, Director, Indian Institute of Arbitration and Mediation, Dr. Anuradha Bindi, Officiating Director, Symbiosis Law School, Hyderabad, and Mr. Kishore Kumar Mishra, President of Law Mantra Trust. Hard work puts you in a place where good lucks find you, and I can say today that it is the result of our hard work that we all are gathered here. It brings an immense pleasure to call upon the backbone of this institution, Mr. Kishore Kumar Mishra, the President of Law Mantra Trust, to address the gathering. He is one of the leading pioneers in the field of law. Sir is also one of the India's leading lawyer and is currently practicing in the Delhi High Court. He is founder of this trust that has provided access to an extensive and fast-growing library for many people in the legal fraternity. He works with dedication for the purpose of enhancing legal academics and legal awareness in the society. Sir, I request you, please address the gathering.
Thank you. Honorable Vice Chancellor, Madam Nishtha Jaswal, Vice Chancellor, National Law University, Shimla, Professor Dr. Naresh Kumar Vats, Registrar and Professor of Law, RJNLU, Punjab, Madam Irma Mazid, the Director, Indian Institute of Arbitration and Mediation, Dr. Anuradha Binuri, the Officiating Director of Symbiosis Law School, Hyderabad. Madam, we are here for the topic of the contemporary issue and challenges of international and domestic laws. Madam, we very much, thankful to Honorable Madam Vice Chancellor from National Law University, Himachal Pradesh is here, and Madam Irma Majid is also here. So in morning session, we have already told about the situation which now we faced about the international topic, like the emerging of Taliban militant, that climate changes, that overpopulation, that the war crime, that the global terrorism and COVID-19. That is the international topic, which is very much, Madam, we want to your information regarding this. And the domestic, as far as the domestic law is concerned, we have faced many more challenges: right to education, women's protection right, domestic laws, probabilities laws, and many more laws. We want to not educate with yourself, Madam. So just I have not wasted too much time, and just requested to Madam Vice Chancellor, National Law University, Himachal Pradesh, ma'am.
Okay, sir, thank you. Thank you for your kind words. A leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. It's my honor to call upon Dr. Anuradha Bindi ma'am, the officiating director of Symbiosis Law School, Hyderabad, a valid example of leadership and empowerment. Her administrative capacity has taken Symbiosis Law School, Hyderabad to new heights. She has chaired various conferences and seminars. She has numerous research paper publication to her credit. She also has edited several books and journals. She is a friend, philosopher, and a guide for her students. Now, I'd like to call ma'am on this virtual platform to enlighten this gathering with her kind words. Ma'am, please.
Thank you. I, Dr. Anuradha Binuri, Officiating Director, Symbiosis Law School, Hyderabad, take this opportunity to thank all the honorable guests for this particular session. Professor Dr. Nishtha Jaiswal, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Himachal Pradesh National Law University, Shimla, Professor Dr. Naresh Kumar Vat, Registrar and Professor of Law, Rajiv Gandhi National University of Law, Patiala, Ms. Irma Majid, Director, Indian Institute of Arbitration and Mediation, and Mr. Kishore Kumar Mishra, President, Law Mantra Trust. Apart from all this, I would also like to thank Dr. Shailendra Kumar and Dr. Aditya Mishra for conceptualizing the whole event. This one-day international seminar on contemporary issues and challenges in international and domestic law, organized by Law Mantra Trust, Symbiosis Law School, Hyderabad, was a platform wherein intellectuals have shared their expertise and valuable experiences to make the sessions very enriching, to the extent that everybody gets an insight to study more about the theme. The contemporary issues and challenges in international and domestic law, which is such a vast area that this one-day international seminar is not enough in itself, but our college takes this opportunity and initiative to conduct more of such seminars in future dates. It was this highly intellectual session, and I believe that everybody is benefited from this whole day session, and there is a lot more to take away for the participants. I further wish that such kind of events will be conducted in future too. With these words, I conclude and I thank each and every one of you present in this session. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for these insightful words. It is said that the empowered woman is powerful beyond measures and beautiful beyond description. And it is my honor to call upon Ms. Iram Majid, Director, Indian Institute of Arbitration and Mediation. Ms. Iram Majid is a legal professional with experience of 16 plus years in handling a wide range of criminal, matrimonial, civil, and commercial banking and finance matters inside the court as advocate and outside the court as mediator. She is executive director of APCAM and she is empaneled as mediator with Global Panel of United Nations Development Program of Amsterdam and a mediator with WIPO. She is also a mediator enlisted on the panel of Delhi High Court Mediation Center, Samadhan, and an arbitrator with the Delhi International Arbitration Center, Delhi High Court. As a mediator and an arbitrator with the Indian Institute of Arbitration and Mediation, IIAM. Furthermore, she is the co-founder and secretary general of the International Federation of Mediators in Finance and a faculty member of IIAM. She has also won BIAMC Top 10 Mediators in Asia Pacific Award 2019. Ma'am, I request you to please address the gathering.
So much, Abhipsa, for the kind and warm welcome. And I would like to say thanks to Anuradha ma'am, Nishtha ma'am, and Dr. Shailendra and the Law Mantra for inviting me. And before I start, I would like to share one of, after seeing this, Dr. Anuradha, I recollect my memory. I've been there in the college once for training the students, 2 days training. It was 2 days training when there was no COVID. So I had an opportunity to stay in the beautiful guest house and the beautiful campus in the Hyderabad. And I recollect those days, you know. So
thank you so much, ma'am. And once COVID is over, we'll invite you once again, ma'am.
Yes.
Even Nishtha Jaiswal ma'am was there in our campus.
Okay, okay. And I used to have food in the mess. So it was everything was so beautifully organized and so well organized. And really, I would like I like the campus.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah. And for the Nishtha ma'am, I would like to say with the law faculty, we have an MOU with the law faculty HPNLU, and I'm taking care of ADR center. And recently we are coming up with a competition. So that is what I must say, that the lady empowerment can be seen here.
Iram, in fact, Dr. Santosh is full of praise for you. And I was so happy to see you virtually, and definitely we'll be meeting physically one-to-one soon.
Yeah, ma'am, thank you so much. He is very cooperative, and all the students, I must say that the students in the final year has raised the bar for the younger students, because the way they are working day and night for this competition, I can see them working, you know. And another day we had a meeting with them till 11 o'clock. So all the students are, yes, ma'am. So with this, I would like to start. So today, the topic is about the international and domestic laws. So since I belong to ADR and I am also associated with an institution, So my perspective and my speech will be to like it will be associated with the institution from the institution's perspective. So before I'll start, I would like to tell you the scenario in the international arbitration. And since all the students are there, so I would like to tell you about the practice, how the practical experiences and how the practice of arbitration is different from domestic and global. So once, if I will be telling you about the practical approach and the practice in the arbitration area, so you have to understand that this arbitration area is no more now a domestic area. It's become a global. So if you are interested in arbitration, so you have to be trained into the global standard patterns. You should match your patterns with the global standards. So how it will be, so let me tell you a brief about it, how this arbitration practice works globally. So the popularity of arbitration and other alternative dispute resolution system are on rise these days. So as the number of international commercial arbitration cases also rise, and so does the need of experience and practitioners and arbitrators. So we need more lawyers, we need more practitioners. So if you are interested in this field, so it is a good news for you that you have a lot of scope in this. So the consistent and the significant growth of ADR means one thing, that you are having a genuine opportunities for the dispute resolution lawyers, arbitrators, and mediators, but they should have been experienced in the subject and the process. So as a professional consultant or the lawyer, you need to adapt the demand of your client to survive the new legal orders. You have to provide sophisticated and specialized legal services to individual and corporate clients of all sizes anywhere in the world. See how the institutions are working and how the institutions have been developed so far. See, you must be knowing that institutional arbitrations are known to be better equipped with their own practices. So suppose if you will be associated with the institution, or you will be starting practicing or interns under the institution, so you will be knowing that how institution is responsible to bring the change domestically and internationally. See, when the COVID happened, so all the courts went on the strike, all the courts were shut down also. They were also not, the hearing was not possible physically. So what happened in that time, that the International Arbitration Institution, they started facilitating the arbitration proceeding involving the parties from the different and the various jurisdictions by way of video conferencing, and have released the guidelines also. Just because of these institutions, the arbitration and mediation were possible. Otherwise, if you look in the court scenario, the court were completely shut down. If the parties are having any dispute, they can't go to the court of law. But if you want to invoke arbitration, if you want to invoke mediation, that was very much possible. How? Because of these institutions. Because institutions were responsible to bring the rules and the guidelines to conduct arbitration or mediation online. So one example to such guidelines includes ICC guidance note on the possible measures and aim at mitigate the effect of COVID-19. So, however, in order to adapt the new normal more efficiently, the structure of institutional arbitration should be reconsidered as to calling for the modification in certain components like the safety of the parties, tribunals, and the institutions, administrative staffs, time and cost efficiencies. So these were the things which all the institutions were taking care. And I would like to point out here one most important thing is this: in April 2020, when the pandemic was at peak, 12 institutions of the arbitration around the globe jointly make a statement that during that arbitration and COVID-19, and they're seeking to promote the stability and forcibility in the highly unstable business environment caused by the pandemic, while simultaneously they assured that the arbitration users that pending cases may not be continued. They will take up the hearing, and they also they said we will be promote adoption of some other electronic means or Zoom or other mechanism, so that the cases should not be remain pending and everything will be clear, and the parties should not be at and they should not suffer. But I would like to point out one thing here. See, all 12 institutions, none of them were Indian. None of them were Indian. And this was my problem. My problem arises from there only, that why we are not been able to make the pace with international institutions or international practices. Why I pointed out this institutional practice? Because India is also becoming, hub of institution, but the problem is we are not able or not ready to adopt the practice. We only keep on saying in the seminars and webinars that yes, we will be coming up with the hub of institutions and we will be creating a lot of institutions and all, but we are not at all, we are using that. So now here your role starts. The role of the colleges, the role of the institutions, the role of the students, because you have to take this practice ahead. You have to take this legacy ahead, and you have to establish and bridge the gap between the international practice of arbitration and mediation, or what you call the ADR practice, or between the domestic and international, because these two are polarized positions. So how to bridge the gap? What the people are looking at, and what all the opportunities you are having. So I'm here, I would like to again tell you that suppose if you will be doing a lot of practice, lot of writing works and everything, is that enough and sufficient for you to match the international standards? I was thinking that where we are lacking, why we are not been able to cope, why not a single institution from India able to provide the guidelines for conducting online arbitrations and mediations, where we are lacking. So the lacking is awareness, but awareness is not enough. Adoption, many things. So that is why today I would like to point out few lacunas and few loopholes and few importance of certain accreditations and certifications, where the students and we should be, bridge that that gap between the international and domestic practice. And we also can be having lot of, we from India can also be represented in many countries, and many institutions should also be represented globally. So that is how I would like to tell you that accreditation. See, let's say if you want to establish yourself, if you want to practice, so you can practice in 168 countries without any fail. Why? Because we have New York Convention. So New York Convention is the convention which is being formed in which has been passed in 1958 by United Nations, by which the arbitral award between two different nations can be enforced in any country without any fail. So in 1958 we have a convention, and now 2019 we have Singapore Convention for the settlement of mediation agreement, and we can enforce that also. So that gives you foundation to practice in those countries. 168 countries has signed that convention, and entire world we have 197 countries. How many countries you have in your hand to practice? That is how the arbitration and mediation liberates jurisdiction, and you can go and practice everywhere. One thing you need to understand, the importance of certifications, trainings, and accreditations. So which accreditation is very important? See, when I do not know why when Abhipsara was giving my introduction, she forgot to mention about IMI certified mediator, ACA, CARP, and all. See, these are my accreditations. So these accreditations you will be giving to establish yourself as an international practitioner. And if you will be having these accreditations, nobody can challenge your knowledge in that area, in that field, because those accreditations are different from certifications, and these are the qualifications to practice internationally. So these accreditations you have to have, and where you can get. For that, I would like to again tell you about the Asia Pacific Center for Arbitration and Mediation. As I told you that none of the institutions were there to announce the COVID and the pandemic problems which occur. So now after that, we worked on this and we created a center in the name of Asia Pacific Center for Arbitration and Mediation. And I'm the executive director of that. See, that institution has 10 countries together, and this institution is not an organization, not an association, not a forum. It is center itself. You will be having center in those different countries. If you get accreditations from here, you can establish yourself in those countries without any problem, without any hassle, because you will be getting a permit. It's like a permit, like suppose if you drive car in domestically, and you will be needing a domestic license. But if you will be traveling, then you require international international this license. So that is how for arbitration practice also you need to have that. See, there was a case where from the ICC people were searching about, they were searching for international, some person who will be trained into international standard and practices, who can be the arbitrator in their case. But unfortunately, it was very difficult to get. Why? Because they will be seeing all these accreditations, and if you don't have, then they will not accept you. So these were the few things which I am telling you, that if you want to establish, if you want to practice, you have to bridge these gaps with the two polarized position. Why Indians are not represented internationally? Why you are not going globally when arbitration and mediation liberates those jurisdictions? Because we are not trained into the standard of international practices. There we are lacking. This is one thing which is the internationally, which I would like to tell you. Thereafter, I would like to add more to this, that how we can improve upon and who all are having the responsibility. See, if I say about the responsibility, it's not the responsibility of your teacher. It's not only the responsibility of the college. It is the responsibility of all the institution, courts, judiciary, and students as well, to take the legacy ahead and to bring that platform for others as well. So now colleges are building ADR centers, and they are having a lot of moot competition related to that, so that they will be able to create awareness among you about the practice. And when they I seen that many colleges are organizing international moot competition of mediation and arbitration. Because they will be having a problem for the international standard, the international laws will be there, and you have to read and go through and understand the practice area for that. So now where we are lacking more domestically is that we are not adding glamour to this. We are failed to add professionalism to this. How to establish professionalism and how to add professionalism? See, generally the practice is the arbitration and mediation is the evening stuff. You have to do it in the evening. That you should not. Maybe many of you may choose ADR area. Please make it full-time profession. So we have to make and create a full-time profession. We have to create full-time professionals to make ADR more visible and create awareness. It's not like earlier that after completing the complete the court work and you will be engaging 4 to 7 only in the arbitration and mediation practice. That should not be there. Second thing is we need more young lawyers into this area. We need to add more, because the mindset they can set a different statistics for the others, and they can set the new norms for others to follow. So we need more young lawyers. The phrase I use, catch them young. So we need more youngsters in the mediation and arbitration. And I hope that for which Nishtha ma'am and Anuradha ma'am will be pushing their students more. And also we need to have a robust mechanism for arbitration. And one thing I would like to say, since 1958, after New York Convention, we have a law for arbitration 1996. Since 1996, we are creating awareness about arbitration. Now take the example of mediation. Since 2005, many states has come up with the court annex mediation center after Salem Bar Association case, but still we are creating awareness. Why we are still creating awareness? Now arbitration and mediation has become adult. They have crossed 18 years of age. So we need to add more glamour to that, and they are now adult. Even then still we are creating awareness. Then the problem is, it's not about awareness. Now we have to adopt it. We have to adopt it. This is the time where awareness is not just enough. We are creating awareness since 1996, since 2005 for the mediation, and negotiation is everywhere, but now it is not enough. We have to adopt it. We have to adopt by way of our career, by writing the clause in the disputes, by making the contract, such contracts where we can negotiate and mediate, and by creating more and more events for the arbitration and mediation. And one thing I would like to say in the end to Nishtha ma'am and Anuradha ma'am and Shailendra sir also, see what I feel that in colleges, the ADR subject comes very late. like it comes in the 4th year and 5th year. By that time, the students has make up their mind to go either in the criminal practice or either in the civil practice. So they, for ADR, they need to be trained into the collaborative practice. So the collaborative practice has to come first, then they need to have an adversarial practice. But adversarial practice has been taught to them in 1st, 2nd, and 3rd year, and ADR is being, introduced very late. By that time, they say, we have made up our mind, we want to go there, we want to go here. So this is my one, request to both of you. If something can be done at this level and something can be, then it will be great for the students and for everyone, because the student will change the law, they will change the practice, and they will establish a new norms for everyone. Over to you, Biswa.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for this insightful thoughts. Today, we really learned a lot from you. So now, moving ahead, I want to quote a thing. As we look ahead in this 21st century, leaders will be those who empowers others. And when I quote this, one name comes to my mind is Professor Dr. Nistha Jaswal. And it is my honor to call Professor Dr. Nistha Jaswal on the virtual platform a true example of leadership and women empowerment. Professor Dr. Nistha Jaswal, the first woman Vice Chancellor of Himachal Pradesh National Law University, Shimla, a gold medalist and academician. Ma'am has a teaching experience of 32 years and research experience of 34 years. She specializes in constitutional law, administrative law, human rights, and environmental law. She has over 65 research papers and 6 books to her name. Her book titled Environmental Law has been cited thrice by the Supreme Court of India in the landmark judgments. Professor Nistha Jaswal has been designated as the Mahar Chand Mahajan Professor of Law by Punjab University, Chandigarh. Ma'am has served Punjab University, Chandigarh in various capacities. She has served as member of Chandigarh Commission of Protection of Child Rights, Punjab Legal Service, Authority Duty Chandigarh, Advisory Committee of Institute of Correctional Administration, Chandigarh, and State Level Authorization Committee of Punjab under the Transplantation of Human Organs Act 1994 and Advisory Committee Nari Niketan, Chandigarh. She is also a member of Board of Studies and Academic Council of CUP, Batinda, RGNUL Punjab, IMS University Dehradun, HPNNU, and Kurukshetra University. Ma'am was also awarded with the British Academy Visiting Professorship Award in 1992. Ma'am, please address the gathering.
Thank you, Beta. At the outset, I congratulate the organizers, La Mantra, Kishore and Aditya for selecting a very good topic. All of us know that laws cannot be static. Laws have to be dynamic. Dynamism as per need of the hour, as per need of the people. And when we talk about laws here, the challenges before international laws or domestic laws, we don't merely confine to the legislative enactments. As Ira has beautifully addressed to you, and focusing on the part of execution, implementation, adoption, I would just like to reiterate that it's not that merely framing of laws is required, then we need to execute, we need to implement. And when the question of judicial review arises, then also we have to look at the laws from all the angles. And I hope I can remind all of you that gone are the days when we confined only to enacted law. Now we even accept judicial legislations. So when we talk about the challenges, as Kishore also talked about it, that at the international level, number of issues like humanitarian laws, what was happening in Syria, now what is happening in Afghanistan. Once we accept and understand the Vedic slogan of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, we are worried and we feel pained whatever happens, wherever happens. And then what to do? It's a challenge. And if it is within our control, we feel little consoled that yes, we will do it, we can do it. If it is beyond our control, then the problem is there. As I am a great lover of Vedic literature, I'll just quote a shloka on the point. Sarvam parvasham dukkham sarvam atmavasham sukham etat vidyat samasen lakshanam sukh dukkhayo, which means everything that is in others' control is painful. All that is in self-control is happiness. This is the definition of happiness and pain. Now we have to decide whether the challenge is to take away the pain or the challenge is to bring happiness. That is very, very important. Now the common issue, like I talked about the pain we felt what is happening in Afghanistan. Then worries, chinta. Now these are the common issues when we refer to international platform or domestic platform, as Iramji very rightly talked in the context of arbitration, mediation. Now, most important thing, if I just pick up one word, that is law. If we refer to international law, till date, we are not able to settle whether this is a law or not, in the sense that can we implement, can we execute, can we enforce? Now, many a time when we feel the pain of what was happening in Syria or what is happening in Afghanistan, we say, see, all the international organizations have failed. What we can do, as Iramji very rightly said, we can sit, we can have seminars, workshops, meetings, we can resolve, we can fill up the papers, and we may ultimately destroy the papers, or we may constitute the committees, commissions, councils. Ultimately, we need constructive results. And I think most important is that we have to use self-restraint. We have to change our mindset. We must learn to adjust, to assimilate, to accommodate. Now, the same problem, like we may talk about the climate change. Now, this is the problem which globally we are suffering. And we had, after Paris Agreement, the Agenda 2030, and we know 17 SDGs are there. 17 SDGs. If we just go through these 17 SDGs, whether we talk about no hunger, no poverty, gender equality, or good cities, or whatever we talk about, good, clean energy, clean drinking water to be made available, all these issues, how difficult it is. Because we are living in an era where we don't merely talk about constitutionalism in the context of rule of law or in the context of good governance. We talk in the context of consumerism also, economic constitutionalism also. So we suffer from that account, because every day we clear one hurdle and we are facing another hurdle. Now, as I was talking about the international situation, the same situation, whether it is developing countries or developed countries, they are facing it. And if we are suffering because of depletion of ozone layer, or we are suffering because of the greenhouse gases, I think all of us are the culprits, because we are leading towards industrialization in the name of development. But my question always remains, that even though we declare right to live in healthy environment as a fundamental right, still, would we like to die a slow death? All of us understand we don't want. But still, in the name of development, where we are leading to. And nature is supreme, the most powerful. Nature has shown us what happened during COVID-19 pandemic crisis. Now, all us were locked down behind the doors. And I think all of you must have noticed that nature got rejuvenated. So what will the law do? Laws are there. We have agendas, we have laws, and even the government is ready to implement. But who is to obey? Who is to follow? No, it's not the nations only. Just imagine, we clean our house and throw the garbage on the road because we think road does not belong to us. So it's the question of belongingness. It's the question of realization. We may talk about the global problem, is international as well as national, of poverty in some countries, overpopulation. We talk about gender. It's not that we have gender issues. We talk on gender equality. It's global disease and issues of children. Now, in the present scenario, because we have increased our intellectual capacity, so we have so many conflicts regarding intellectual property rights, global terrorism. We talk about cyberspace issues. And we in fact suffer on account of losing our autonomy, our privacy. And there's a hot discussion going on throughout the world regarding protection of data. Do we need to separate the sensitive data from other data? Now, who is at fault? Now, we are talking against the surveillance, whether this is a government surveillance, whether this is indiscriminate social media surveillance. The question is, even if we have all kinds of laws, are we saved? Just look into your conscience and ask, do we read the privacy policy? We say, why to waste time? Just say agree and proceed further. Now, this is the situation. Similar situation we face combinedly as well as at national level. If I remind you that we had many challenges and we overcame those challenges. When we start from that stage where the issue was whether fundamental rights can be amended or not, ultimately the Supreme Court settled the issue in Keshwananda Bharati versus State of Kerala in 1973 and evolved a basic structure theory that there are certain basic features of the Constitution without which the Constitution will collapse. These cannot be amended. Still, we keep on questioning. And if I just start your journey after the inception of the Constitution, that how, when Article 21 was framed and for the first time it was questioned, the term law in A.K. Gopalan versus State of Madras in 1950, I must remind you that law was defined as only enacted law. Don't you think it was a challenge that what was recognized, what was guaranteed? Life or liberty, meaning only something like animal existence, that we have food, we have water, we have shelter only. And if I go beyond this, it took years, 1996 and even 2000. And later, we talked about where the Supreme Court guaranteed this right to food, right to clean drinking water, right to shelter. I'm not talking about all those cases. There's no dearth of cases, flood of cases are there. And this is beyond imagination that even though after Maneka Gandhi, this procedural due process, which was the property of United States of America, we also imported. And we said procedure for depriving any person of life or personal liberty must be fair, just, and reasonable. And we even adopted the substantive due process after the decision of Mittu versus State of Punjab in 1983. When we declare section 303 of Indian Penal Code as unconstitutional. Now we overcame the challenge and we widened the scope of Article 21, that right to life means right to live with human dignity. But shockingly, that Supreme Court had to declare that right to marry a person of one's own choice is a fundamental right. In fact, I think you ask any commoner, he'll say, what is this? Right to marry is a natural right. God has given us this right. So the problem it never gets solved with the passing of laws, enactments. Or even if we enact laws, what happens? Issues of child rights. We have many international conventions, And if I just refer to International Convention on Child Rights of 1989, beautiful few principles are mentioned. And the best out of these is best interest of the child. We adopted this. When JJ Act of 2015 was passed, Section 4 clearly talks about all these principles. Now still, see, this is a welfare legislation in the interest of children. Still we criticize it. Why? Because we weigh it on the litmus test of criminal law. That in criminal law, everybody is presumed to be innocent till found guilty. But this, after this, then if I refer to POXO, POXO says that presumption is against the accused. It's not in favor of the accused that he is innocent. So we keep on questioning and see how then we, after Nirbhaya's case, we amended. We had criminal law amendment, we amended certain because we made a distinction between considering juvenile. Another phase we added 16 to 18 years. So it is based on convenience, but the question is, amendments are there. We made amendment here also. And whether we have achieved what we wanted. And just recently we had another news in Bombay, what happened? Similar situation. And that is why I time and again reiterate that framing of laws is not sufficient. Like we had so many laws for the protection of women. We can count on the fingers. We say dowry prohibition, we say ITPA, we say protection of women from domestic laws or protection against sexual harassment. I still remember there was a decision in 2005. Very truly, in Satish Kumar Sharma's case, Supreme Court went to the extent of talking and taking such laws as legal terrorism. Why? Because these women laws have been from domestic violence or even protection of sexual harassment. These laws have been misused like anything. Objective was good, but ultimately where we land into. And then I can also talk about another very, very important issue. When you talk about laws, one very important issue which we kept on facing for years together, that is, for God's sake, it should not happen to anybody. If any are near or dear one meets with an accident on the road, what will happen? Your effort will be take him or her immediately for medical aid. Now, the situation was nobody allowed. Even the hospital did not admit because let the police complete formalities. Fortunately, on the road only you find a board of a doctor in a near vicinity and you go there and ask the doctor, please give first aid to the patient. And if the doctor says, look, I am ENT specialist, I can't give first aid, I think it will pierce into your heart and take away all life out of your body. Now here the Supreme Court intervened. Parmanand Katra's case of 1989, where directions were issued and no such plea can be taken. And first of all, first aid to be given and then all other formalities. And I can also refer to a decision in 2016 where the Supreme Court issued guidelines regarding bystanders' duties. Save India Foundation, Save Life Foundation case of 2016, where the problem was that you help somebody, but then you are in trouble. Nobody would like to face the police station every third day. So number of guidelines are there and Supreme Court advised to be good Samaritans. And in fact, Karnataka is the first state to enact such law for protection of good Samaritans. This is Karnataka Good Samaritans and Medical Professional Protection and Regulation During Emergency Situations Act. But if we go by empirical study of this, we'll find how effective the law is. Similarly, we can talk about like the passage of Whistleblowers Protection Act of 2011. Now this corruption, this is the worldwide problem. Only there may be difference of degree. Now this is for the protection of whistleblowers. Blows the whistle and informs, brings into light the corrupt practices. Now, this is required for the growth of the country, for the purity of the society, for the contentment of the individuals. But my question again remains, if such laws are not religiously implemented, and if challenged, then the law or any complaint or any petition has the same story. Why I am pending in the files of any court for years together? So I would finally conclude simply by saying, yes, wherever we need enactment of laws. And I don't doubt the capability of our parliament, our state legislatures. Then the problem is of implementation. I would like to remind myself and everybody present here that we are bound by the theory of checks and balances. Even if the executive prefers to sleep, not to implement, no court can give directions you implement it, because this is the essential function belonging to the legislation. That is why there emerged the concept of judicial legislation. Had Vishaka not been there, we would have to wait till 2013 when the law was passed. Had judicial decisions not been there, PCPNDT Act passed in 1994, amended in 2002, 2016, again, Voluntary Health Organization case Supreme Court issue guidelines, implement this law. So what is required that all of us have to join hands, all the stakeholders, all the three organs of the state, and we who are to be governed, that if we want to live in rule of law regime, then we have to follow the laws religiously. And finally, I'll conclude. I can share with you, I am a poet by heart. कानून बनाने से कानून की पालना जरूरी है. कानून बनाने से कानून की पालना जरूरी है. कानून पालने योग्य हो, उससे भी जरूरी है. कानून पालने योग्य हो, उससे भी जरूरी है. कानून नहीं तो मानवता अधूरी है. कानून नहीं तो मानवता अधूरी है. कानून अगर देखे चेहरा, ऐसी कैसी मजबूरी है. You show me the face, I'll show you the law. This should not be there. कानून देखे चेहरा, ऐसी कैसी मजबूरी है. संसद में बैठे कलाकार ढूंढते शब्द जरूरी है. संसद में बैठे कलाकार ढूंढते शब्द जरूरी है, परंतु चेतावनी और संघर्ष का सामना करने का हुनर जरूरी है. कानून को धरोहर मान नहीं, कानून को धरोहर मान सरकार की नहीं मशहूरी है. ये धरोहर है सरकार का. पट्टी कानून की आंखों पे बांधना नहीं, ताकत की खुमारी है. पट्टी कानून की आंखों पे बांधना नहीं, ताकत की खुमारी है. It has some other interpretation. कानून का पलड़ा संभालते माप तोल के जोहरी. कानून का पलड़ा संभालते माप तोल के जौहरी. न्यायमूर्ति न्याय सिंहासन के रक्षक और प्रहरी है. न्यायमूर्ति न्याय सिंहासन के रक्षक और प्रहरी है. इन तीन कंधों में चौथा मीडिया का जोड़ना भी जरूरी है. इन तीन कंधों में चौथा मीडिया का जोड़ना भी जरूरी है, मगर इससे अधिक उन्हें समझना अपना कर्तव्य जरूरी है. Finally, I pray to God. ए रब, चुनौतियां तो जीवन चक्र की धुरी हैं. ए रब, चुनौतियां, चैलेंजेस. ए रब, चुनौतियां तो जीवन चक्र की धुरी हैं. जब हल मिल जाए तो कभी लगती नहीं बुरी है। जब हल मिल जाए तो कभी लगती नहीं बुरी है। God bless all of us.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your pleasant words. It was great hearing you. Now I would like to request Anushka to take over.
Please note that all the participants will be receiving their certificates within a week's time. All the attendees who have attended both inaugural and the valedictory session are requested to fill the form circulated in the chat box for the certificate. It is an honor for me to propose the vote of thanks to all who have helped us in making the seminar such a tremendous success. First of all, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude towards all the esteemed guests who have spared their precious time, attended this seminar, and graced us with their presence. I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude towards Law Mantra Trust for facilitating this event. I would also like to take this opportunity and thank the organizers of today's seminar for ensuring the smooth functioning of the seminar and the paper presentation. I would also like to thank the coordinators for putting their heart and soul to this event. And last but not the least, I would like to thank all the participants who engaged in the paper presentation and made it a fruitful event. It is said that gratitude is the healthiest of all human emotions. The more you express gratitude for what you have, the more likely you will have even more to express gratitude for. We request all our delegates and signatories to please switch on their cameras for the photo session of this seminar.
Jaiswal ma'am.
Ma'am, I'm not being able to hear you.
हाँ जी, अनुराधा जी.
We seek your blessings again on 1st of October.
हाँ, बिल्कुल बिल्कुल.
आप इंडक्शन पे
बिल्कुल.
अड्रेस कर रहे हैं keynote
फर्स्ट को आपसे
speaker.
मिलेंगे.
हाँ मैम,
वर्चुअली
thank you.
मिलेंगे.
हाँ मैम, thank you so much.
बिल्कुल, थैंक यू जी. इरम जी, आपको भी हम जल्दी मिलने वाले हैं.
I'm desperate.
Sure, sure. Thank you. Thank you.
I once again